Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lyra podcast, the podcast that does deep dives into the best of comic books, graphic novels, and mangas. I'm your host, the soon-to-be-known as Comic Stan, and with me, as always, is my festive co-host, it's Jamie.
Hello there.
We are being very festive at this festive time of year.
I'm feeling the least festive I've ever felt.
Yeah, we are in that middle kind of area where we're too old to really feel the festivity before you then have kids and the magic comes back, you know?
Well, what I've realised is that actually the magic comes back, but it's you making the magic. Once you have kids, you are the person creating Christmas magic, and that sounds more stressful.
It sounded like you were about to go into like a self-help, like how to make your own magic. Buy my 10-point plan.
I'm going to be honest with you, Ryan. I've taken you know this, but the audience don't. I've taken a part-time job in the hospitality sector for the Christmas period for some pocket money. It's been fun, but I'm also pulling like 70-hour weeks at the moment. And I'm doing a lot of those in a pub at Christmas time. And so I'm not feeling very festive at all.
It does sound like your life is somewhat mimicking a Hallmark Christmas movie. It's like, he had to take a part-time job just to make ends meet.
So what I'm hoping is that some attractive woman we went to school with comes home for Christmas, and then I'm the like grounded but naive man from her hometown that she falls in love with.
Yeah, exactly. And then she doesn't want to go back to a high-paying city job.
Yeah, absolutely. She just wants to live in Norfolk with me
to
and
settle
rot.
down with a schlub. And I'm not calling you a schlub, but that is the archetype of the guy.
If I was being casted in a Hollywood film, I'm not even sure I would be handsome enough to be the schlubby guy these days.
The schlubby guy is normally actually attractive, which is an insult to us real schlubs.
Well, yeah, because remember, for the longest time, Chris Pratt was a schlubby guy. In Parks and Recs, he was the schlubby guy. He's Chris Pratt.
True, but he was very good at acting the role.
Yeah, this is true.
Because in the first season of Parks and Recs, both his legs are broken. So he's like, babe, can you pass me a beer?
Yeah.
So he nailed the performance. Interestingly enough, the reason he got into that shape, the schlub shape, is because he was ripped already. Like, most people don't know this. He was ripped beforehand, but it was a struggle to get parts, because if you're in Hollywood,
everyone's ripped.
Throw a stone, there's a bunch of ripped guys going for the lead role, romantic role, whatever. So he was like, someone I think literally said to him was like, you're funny. If you were less attractive or less in shape, you could get funny supporting role bits. Like
a Jack Black.
Well, Jack Black, the John Goodman, like the non-comedy version of that. Like, he's the character actor support. He's funny, but you know what I mean. So
John Goodman's fucking brilliant in everything.
Yes, but he's not always funny. Like, he doesn't always pick funny stuff.
Am I the only mother? Oh, what is it? What's the line from?
I'm the only guy around here who still cares about the rules.
Yeah, that guy.
Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski. Man, what a film.
But yeah, he got fat, and then he was like, then did Parks and Recs, and everyone was like, oh my god, you're so funny. Do you want to star in films? So it's like, can you get jacked first? He's like, yeah, I'll just get jacked again. And then he got jacked, and everyone's like, oh my god, Chris Pratt got jacked. That's
and
what
actually,
they said.
he'd just let himself go to help his acting career. That's
exactly
beautiful.
And then you look at like J.K. Simmons, like he had to become the character actor, and then after, if you look at him now, he's now jacked
because that was his natural state.
Yeah, exactly. But he's just like, I might as well get jacked now. Like, he's not even taking lead man roles.
So before we begin, and just to go back to my original tangent, can I put out a public service announcement this Christmas time?
Depending on what it is, but go ahead.
Well, this is going out on Christmas Day, right?
This is going down on Christmas Day.
Merry Christmas. I hope you are having a wonderful day.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Chrysler. Merry Christmas. That's plagiarism.
It's fine.
Vine doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
How are they going to find us?
Exactly.
So when you're out in a pub on New Year's Eve, particularly if you are the kind of nerd that I imagine listens to our podcast, who doesn't usually go out drinking in pubs, when you order a drink from a barman or a bar lady or a bar person, and they give you your drink, they don't have a card reader in their hand yet. Don't start pushing your debit card into their chest, because they can't take your payment with their nipples. And it annoys me, Ryan. It annoys me.
Are you using this outlet, this production, to just vent your own personal frustrations?
Yes, but it is me and every other hospitality worker in the entirety of the UK right now. I know you want to pay by card. I can see your debit card in your hand. You don't need to push it into the pint I'm trying to put down on the bar for you When I have a card reader in my hands, I will take your payment, sir.
See, what I like to do is I'll get my wallet out and get the card out, but then realize I've done it way too early.
Yeah.
So then I'll just kind of awkwardly like stand there, like, because I don't want to, I'm the opposite. Like, I'm the intro. It's like, don't piss anyone off. So I'm like not like holding it ready. So I'm kind of fumbling with it in my hands. Like, I always play with my card when I'm waiting for payment.
And do you know what, Ryan? You are a dream to serve. You guys,
I've been told.
You guys are magnificent. Like, you have your card ready. It is visible. I don't need to ask you if you're paying by cash or card. I can see your debit card. It's when you thrust it into my chest when I don't have a card reader in my hands. What are you expecting me to take that payment with? How am I supposed to take that payment? I do not have a card reader in my hands, sir.
We're not that far off card readers being built into service workers' hands or faces.
Yeah, and just, there's one on every pint glass.
Yeah. We're not too far off it. AI will help, probably.
Oh, don't. Have you seen... I don't know if you spend as much time on TikTok as I do at the moment. Have you seen AI Marge Simpson?
I've not, no.
There is somebody who has created a TikTok account with a narrative. So it's all AI-generated images of Marge Simpson. But she's a, British woman just going through her life. She had a baby, and then she was going out on the piss and leaving the baby at home, and I think Child Protective Services are now involved. AI Marge, man. AI Marge is where it's at the moment. It's like the most interesting thing happening online right now.
Did you see AI Jerry Springer?
Yeah.
It was a great idea for the time. It was a 24-hour day, 7 days a week, constantly running episode of... was it the Jerry Springer Show? Was that what it's called? Was it?
Was it Jeremy Kyle?
No, not Jeremy Kyle. That's a British thing. Not even Jerry Springer. God damn, I've gotten the bloody as comedian. Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld Show. God damn it. No, so Seinfeld, they did a constantly running AI written and produced show, and it was like block characters, like 8-bit graphics. So it was like
fantastic.
Yeah, but it was all made from a computer. So everyone was like, "This is crazy." And then what happened was it was going well and people were watching it. And then eventually it just started getting racists for some reason.
Because AI.
Exactly. And then everyone's like, shut it down, shut it down. It's like Spider-Man 2.
Turn ChatGPT off.
It was Spider-Man 2. Cut the power, Otto. And I think someone just fed it like the Kramer comedy stand-up debacle scandal, whatever. And then I was like, well, I guess I'm writing this into the episode. But if you want to check that out, check that out. And now back onto the Christmas stuff.
Yeah,
the Christmas stuff.
Merry Christnog. What are we talking about today? Is it festive?
It is festive indeed. We are discussing the Marvel 1991 holiday special. The reason being is, like we said, it's Christmas. And should we stuff a little bit? What's our relationship with Christmas? You know mine, and I think I know yours, but for the listener, I'll say I'm a self-described humbug. Sure, I think or a Grinch. I've been called a Grinch. I'm not that big on Christmas.
Me neither, if I'm being honest with you. For many years, many years, my Christmas was getting imponderably drunk on Christmas Eve in the pub and singing with strangers. And then Christmas Day was to be endured with a frightening hangover. If we're being completely honest with ourselves here.
We've all been there at least once.
I was one of those, I was that relative that everybody in their extended family thought was miserable, but is actually quite chirpy because they only ever saw me on Christmas Day struggling.
Yeah.
Like fighting for my life on Christmas Day. Everyone thought I didn't drink because, oh my God, the thought of it, Jesus Christ. And so, yeah, my relationship with Christmas has changed over the past few years. I had a couple Christmas experiences that changed it, which we won't go into on air. Ryan knows what's up.
He was visited by that angel that showed him what life was like if he was never born. Was that it?
Well, I had a Dickens Christmas Carol.
No, Dickens is you're an arsehole, and is why you shouldn't be an arsehole. I'm talking It's a Wonderful Life. That one, the black and white one.
Do you know what? It's a Wonderful Life came up in like a work quiz at a Christmas thing the other day, and everyone over 45 on the table was like, oh my God, I love A Wonderful Life. And all us millennials and Zoomers were like, what the fuck is this?
It's because it's black and white. That there was a cut-off of like, as soon as color came in, it was like, everyone who was used to color was like, fuck black and white. Like, that's old shit.
I love shit in black and white.
You know me, if it didn't happen within the last 2 weeks, it's not relevant.
Yeah.
I don't care
if it's not news, it's not important.
Exactly. But yeah, Wonderful Life is that one. Obviously, Christmas Carol is the ghost and all that, which might come in later.
The most adapted piece of British literature.
And And the best adaptation is, of course,
The Muppets Christmas Carol,
yes.
which is fantastic and beautiful in every way.
And as a self-described Grinch or humbug, I have to say The Muppets Christmas Carol is probably the best Christmas movie.
Oh, you're wrong.
Are you going to say Die Hard? You mean one of those?
No, there's a better one.
All right. The Grinch, Jim Carrey?
No.
All right.
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle all the way.
All right. Jingle All the Way is the best. I will not have this contested. It's Turbo Time, motherfucker. It's Turbo Time.
I mean, yeah, it's good. It's a good Christmas film.
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger in a Christmas film. What how is this? Everyone's like, oh, Love Actually is the best Christmas film. Or if you're a bit
Love
quirky,
Actually sucks.
If you're a bit quirky, it's The Holiday, which I did watch recently. It is very good. However, it's not Christmas unless you've watched Jingle All the Way. It's just not.
Technically, Batman Returns is a Christmas film. Takes place at Christmas.
Yeah, see, and this is the technicality that Die Hard gets through.
Die Hard is a Christmas film.
And for a few years there, I did watch Die Hard every Christmas. But the Rick and Morty episode has ruined Die Hard for me.
I'm doing a Die Hard.
Yeah, this is it. Like, I feel like after that episode, I can't watch Die Hard now without thinking about Summer doing a Die Hard, having never seen Die Hard.
If anything, it solidifies that Die Hard is such a cultural touchstone that to say I'm doing a Die Hard is understandable. So
I was in a metal band once that had a song called Hard Love, and we were trying to write a sequel to it that was going to be called Hard Love 2 Love Harder, which we thought was fucking hilarious. In retrospect, not that funny.
It's that level where, speaking of someone who wasn't involved in the creation of the joke, I think from the outsider, I would see that written down somewhere and I would go, that's cute. Like, that's the level. Yeah, I'd be like, that's nice.
Have you ever listened to Austrian Death Machine?
Obviously not.
Have you heard of Austrian Death Machine?
Obviously not.
Austrian Death Machine are a metal band with, I don't know if it's actually an Austrian bloke at the front of it. It's somebody doing an Austrian accent. It's a metal band that only writes songs about Arnold Schwarzenegger films.
Okay.
Like exclusively. Cool. And they're a heavy metal band and they just sing about Arnie. And it's fantastic.
You might already know this, there's a heavy metal band. I can't remember what they're called, but they are all basically Ned Flanders.
The Flanders.
Is it the Flanders?
It's the Flanders.
I can't remember if it's that or like Diddley something.
No, they're the Flanders. There's also the dwarf metal band.
Right. Yep. I've the gnomes.
Are they gnomes?
Yeah, because they've got the gnome hat, like the long pointed. They are garden gnomes.
No, there's a metal band where they all dress up as dwarves from Lord of the Rings, and they sing dwarven metal.
There's also a gnome metal band, and I think they've started the gnome metal genre.
I love that how genrefied isn't a word. I've coined it. It sounds very cromulent.
I've heard genrefied before. It's a perfectly cromulent word, obviously.
Yeah, it's a perfectly cromulent word.
Yeah.
Because of how genrefied metal is now, all you need to do is put on a silly costume and it becomes its own subgenre of metal.
I feel like you need to add a little something to the music itself.
Only a little.
This
much. And you can tell by the tone in my voice that I was holding my fingers really close together there.
He was holding it like, the world's smallest violin.
Yeah.
Like that kind of level. So, Christmas.
A very Marvel Christmas.
That is what we're doing. And this one specifically. So this one I looked up for a very specific reason. And the reason is, and we'll get into the first story, but I'll mention now, it's the Marvel comic that canonized Santa Claus not only being a character in the Marvel universe, but being also one of the world's most powerful mutants.
Yeah. So I vote today that because this is a very special Christmas episode, we don't just talk about every comic book in order. Because I think both of us will lose our marbles.
I mean, that's what I was going to do, but...
Damn, Daniel, back at it again.
What are you suggesting alternatively?
Just a little, fun little guided tour through the thing. Not too linear.
Guided tour chronologically from beginning to end. We can do each story as you want. Like, there's no order to the story. So I don't care doing each story. As long as we do each story. I like to visit each story individually because I feel like there was a variation in quality. So, ones I want to kind of praise a bit more, and others I want to be like, what was
should we talk about the X-Men first?
It is the first one. Are you sure you want to go down that chronological route?
Don't insist on structure and then get upset when I bend to your will and agree to there being structure.
I mean, structure makes the world go round, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it is.
The restrictions of structure is what actually helps conceive the most creative of ideas, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that.
So the Marvel Holiday Special, I thought, I didn't know much about it till doing the research. I initially thought, when I did my most basic research, I thought it ran from 1991, so it's the first one we're doing today, to 2012. I thought, fucking hell, it's gone on for like 19 years.
Yeah.
And then when I actually looked at the list of ones, it was like, oh, there was one in 91, 92, 93, 94, 96, 2005, 06, 07, and 11.
So intermittently.
Yeah, they've kind of picked up and dropped it like as and when they want. But still like a staple of the comics.
I think it's a rad idea. I'm going to be honest with you. I quite enjoyed my time with it.
I already know what we're going to do next year. Well, I've got a good idea for what we're going to do next year, because there's currently releasing right now a comic about Batman and Superman helping Santa or something, and it looks really good. And the only reason we're not doing it now is because it would not have released enough for our recording right now to cover the whole thing. So it's like, put a pin in that. We'll revisit that next year, unless there's a better one, but it still looked good. So this one, as I said, the 1991 one, anthology of Christmas-related superhero stories, very of its time, very early 90s, which I think is very interesting. And we start off with a story, and I actually got all the names of the stories. We start off with, that's one thing, I've got the names of the stories. They're in order. I don't know necessarily if I'm going to be able to link them correctly if we do them out of order. Yeah. Let's see. But we start off with a miracle a few blocks down from 34th Street. Do you want to give us a brief? Do you want to go back and forth with brief synopsis?
So the mutants are...
Specifically the X-Men.
The X-Men are decorating a Christmas tree. And then the bad X-Men, who are named...
Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Really does what it says on the tin.
Start causing some shit somewhere, and they go to deal with it, and Santa turns up.
So... how open are you to corrections in this instance?
I'll take a correction.
So
I read this a week ago.
Yeah. What's interesting about this is the reason they're called out or the reason they go out is because their Cerebro machine, which is like Professor X's like psychic mutant hunting machine, basically, picks up like, oh my god, there's an Omega level mutant, which is the highest level. We need to go, like, Omega level is like, there could be some serious damage if this mutant just does whatever they want. So we need to, like, go and, like, not, like, capture them, but, like, go and recruit them and help them.
Yeah, see if they're friend or foe. Yes. It's an expression that actually comes up.
Exactly. So they go there, and obviously it turns out that it's Santa Claus. But there's a great little thing where somehow the Brotherhood of Mutants, one of theirs has that ability, so they are also looking for the power. They want to be like, we want to recruit them to evil in our ways and all that, because we've self-described as the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a bit on the nose, but it was the 90s.
Yeah, I think they retcon that in later years to just the Brotherhood of Mutants, which sounds way more like, we are the Brotherhood. That sounds
way
good.
More badass.
What happened to the evil? Like, don't worry about that. It's like just taped over on the side.
Are they still evil though?
Yeah, of course. They've always been evil. Yeah.
Then they should just go full in on it.
But they don't. But good bad guys don't think of themselves as evil, do they?
It's that Mitchell and Webb sketch.
Are we the baddies? Yeah. We have evil in the name of the group.
We literally have a skull and crossbones on our hats.
Exactly. So this one, written and drawn by Scott Lobdell and Dave Cochran, and very 90s. I really liked this kind of 90s art. Like, the art changes kind of from story to story, so it's worth a little mention.
I mean, it reminded me of old X-Men cartoons.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Well, there's a specific reason for that, and I think that's because of the lineup. So
yeah.
What the point we're at now with this is, we had just recently, I don't know how recently, but contextually recently, relatively recently, that we'd come off the original lineup. So the original lineup was Jean Grey, Cyclops, Beast, Iceman, and Angel. So they were the original first X-Men. And then I think after a decade or however long afterwards, they were like, we need to revamp and reintroduce some new X-Men. So this was the kind of new, I think 80s this team maybe started.
So Wolverine's not an original X person.
No, not an original. He became the most famous by a mile. But yeah, no, he was actually, when he was first introduced, I think his original backstory was he was literally a mutated Wolverine. Like, he was a Wolverine that became a human somehow or something.
Oh.
Obviously, that got retconned.
That's gross.
Yeah, that got retconned into that he was a actual mutant and Wolverine was just a nickname. Or, his mutant name.
Because he had the adamantium claws at this point, at least, didn't he? Like, it was referenced in the story.
He always had the claws. But back when he first was introduced, that was when you just introduced the character and just gave them shit and just never bothered explaining it. It's like, here's a guy with claws. And he was a baddie.
Times.
He was a baddie in the Hulk issue first, I believe.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah. And there's always been a running thing where Wolverine is one of the few like relatively human-esque characters who can actually take on the Hulk in a fight.
Yeah.
He's taking most of the beating. But because of his adamantium bones and his healing factor, he can actually like survive those and get some hits in himself.
He can take enough of a beating.
Yes, and come back from it.
Yeah.
There was a point, I think, where he got ripped in half by the Hulk or something. And he was still like, yeah, I'm still in the fight, though.
Which half grew back to make the other half?
I think he like crawled and like joined
boring.
back. Because he can't regrow the adamantium. I don't know. It's comic book logic.
I want to know if he grows from the body out or the legs up.
Well, it's the Deadpool conundrum. It's do two Deadpools grow? Because Deadpool not having the metal bones, he can more like be torn up and stuff. There was a...
Doesn't he get the metal bones in that weird X-Men one, though?
No, he must have done because he had the claws, but...
Well, he had the two samurai swords, didn't he?
But they were in his arms,
Ryan
weren't they?
Reynolds.
Yeah.
Poor Ryan.
Well, luckily it wasn't him by that point. But, yeah.
It was him, wasn't it?
In the beginning.
We've talked about this, haven't we?
Yes. Maybe there'll be a video on it at some point.
Maybe if Ryan gets off his arse and makes the soon-to-be comic stands.
Soon to be, didn't say when.
I mean, it's been soon to be for the full year that we've been making this podcast.
Relative to when I actually started. So we've got the X-Men, they're decorating the tree, and got some absolute fan favorites here. Storm, obviously a great one. Nightcrawler, like if you like, that's when people know it's like, oh, Nightcrawler. Like
I exclusively I recognize the big metal Russian bloke from the Deadpool films.
Yep.
Obviously, I recognised Wolverine. Storm was the only other one I recognised. I was weirded out that Cyclops wasn't there.
So they meet him later, but...
Yeah.
But this is very much, I think, this was who was active in the comics at the time.
Yeah,
this was the new group, yeah. And Banshee is one that did not get as much of a presence in the 97 X-Men cartoon.
Is Banshee the one that makes a high-pitched screech?
Yes, and he's Irish, I believe, and he can actually like fly because of his sonic screeching and stuff.
Yeah, he's the one in that new X-Men film who breaks a statue, isn't he?
Which film?
You know, the one with Sansa Stark in it.
Oh, Apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I actually didn't see Apocalypse.
I like that her name in my head is not Sophie Turner. It's Sansa Stark.
Most people, I think. Most people our age, like younger people know him because of Jonas Brothers and all that bollocks.
Oh, she married one of them, didn't she?
I think they're divorced now, actually.
Shit.
You heard it here first. It's
hot news.
It's not that hot. It's everywhere already.
Imagine if this was the first place to break it. It would be hilarious.
How did you get this scoop?
Ryan's just casually friends with Maisie Williams.
I'm in the know. Somehow.
They get coffee.
So, classic Wolverine threatening a man made of metal with his metal claws.
I know, but surely his claws would go through, right?
I mean...
this is the shit that comic book nerds love.
There's been arguments had about it.
Because Colossal isn't made of adamantium, is he?
No, but that's the thing, is his metal is more of a organic metal, because it's his skin, and, you know... So, theoretically, adamantium should cut through it, because adamantium is one of the strongest metals in known existence. But do we count, or does the Marvel Universe count Colossus' skin in that tally? Like, do they actually, rank it in it?
Also, this, just as a side note, this comic book gave me the most terrifying piece of art, which is going to be my Christmas card next year. The state of that. For reference, it's a very badly drawn, quite creepy Father Christmas holding a bunch of the evil mutants brotherhood that he shrunk to the size of action figures.
Yep. And not even just shrunk, made into action figures.
It's
like they
terrifying.
are inanimate objects, essentially.
You're an inanimate fucking object.
So that's how powerful Santa is in this.
Santa goes hard in this.
Yeah. Essentially, Santa just stops the fighting. But it's never explained why he's in a mall in New York. He's just...
that's where you find Santa. If the movies have taught me anything, Ryan, that's where you find Santa at Christmas time.
But you also find him at several other locations at the same time. So, like, how was he there? Or why was he there?
Look, if we're going to start debunking Santa, this needs to be
I'm not debunking. Santa's real. For anyone listening, Santa's real. All I'm saying is, why was he at this particular location? Because if he is bringing presents, why, like, shouldn't he be? It's leading up to Christmas. All the Christmas decorations.
He was doing his last minute Christmas shopping in Macy's.
I mean, who of us haven't? But
in Macy's,
yeah, in Macy's of all places. But I guess all like my qualms about like his story, he's so powerful he could literally teleport across the earth, or I mean, who knows what the limit is to mutant Santa's powers? So the fact I'm just merely asking, why was he there?
I think the fact that he's a mutant is a very elegant explanation of Santa's powers, if I'm being honest with you.
I think they go. I don't know if they go into further detail after this. Like I've heard things. Like I've heard things over the grapevine or Marvel forums. I think it's later confirmed that he's like one of the oldest mutants. So that they normally reserve for the villain Apocalypse. So he's meant to be the oldest mutant because he developed his mutant powers in Egypt, ancient Egypt.
So it becomes canon that Santa Claus, like, is Santa Claus a reoccurring mutant in the X-Men?
So I think he might be. I don't know.
That's fucking rad.
I mean, he might be, and it would be stupid for them to not include that in later comics because you've started it here in 91, and as we know, comic writers love picking up bits from when they read comics as a kid, and then be like, "I'm bringing this back in my run."
So, like, a full year's worth of X-Men, right? That starts in January, with this evil villain that nobody can work out, that culminates in the December issue and it turns out to be Mutant Santa, would be fucking rad. It would be rad, and like they'd planned the whole thing out.
Surprise! Turns out it's always been a Christmas comic.
Right? Yeah!
Started in January.
How amazing would that be?
That'd be like some Tom King level shit.
There's some Darren Brown level shit. Fuck Tom King.
I will not have that blasphemy on the podcast.
Yeah, we do want to get him on one day.
But yeah, it feels like one of those wasted opportunities if they haven't. I'll hopefully find some more for later Christmas episodes. Yeah. All going well. I appreciated one of the Evil Brotherhood mutants was Blob, who is he's always drawn at various sizes. Like sometimes he's this level, he's just like a big guy. Other times he's like visibly a mutant, like he is like 5 people size.
Really?
Yeah. It depends like who's drawing him and what they're doing.
Because Blob's the one that Logan has that boxing match with.
Yes. Yeah.
Who just tanks hits.
Yeah, and that was a rather, I say, somewhat accurate depiction. Like when he was in the gym, obviously they had him skinny earlier on, and sometimes most of the time his powers are just like he is that big. Like he's not fat and eats a lot like he did in that X-Men Origins film. He is that big constantly, or at least when his mutant powers hit. But what I loved especially was Colossus when fighting with him. He literally says, in response to Blob's quip, he goes, "And you are immensely overweight for an American."
Yeah.
I was like, he's pretty small in this, so it's not that.
Doesn't he tell Logan he's short for a Canadian or something?
No, Colossus, he says something. Colossus says something back to him. Because Logan's fighting the guy who makes like an indestructible force field.
Yeah.
And Wolverine's like, "I heard this is indestructible, but I'm going to have a good go anyway." And then the guy's like, "Bloody hell, I think you might actually get through."
I love that the Blob action figure is just round. Like, that's fantastic artwork.
That's how big he should be. Like, that's in later comics.
Yeah, makes sense.
Also, all these 91 comics have the pre-noughties over expositional dialogue.
Yeah.
I feel like we're finding the marker as we do older and newer comics. It's like, it seems to be the noughties was when it changed.
Early to mid noughties is that there's a transitional period where you kind of get what you get. But after the noughties, it tends to get a bit better, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I've read comics modern day come out this year that still do over expositional dialogue, and I'm like, have you not learned, or were you just commissioned to like churn out a bloody Iron Man story, and which is like, fuck it, paying attention.
Iron Man.
I've been reading Iron Man recently.
How's that been?
It's a pretty decent one actually. It's this one running started in 2022. I'm reading it because it actually coincides with the X-Men,
right? Because that's huge, that run at the moment, isn't it?
Iron Man actually marries. I haven't even got to this part yet, but Iron Man marries Emma Frost from the X-Men, and it because she's from Krakoa, their living island in their own country. It becomes like a kind of diplomatic marriage.
Weird. Weird, Marvel.
Yeah. But that's why I love like that kind of level of thought.
Does he not marry what's-her-face?
I mean, he's probably been married and divorced, like comics
not Tony Stark's like.
Well, bloody look at Spider-Man and Mary Jane alone.
Let's not.
Well, we'll get to that.
I
later.
don't want to get sad.
But yeah, Iron Man. I haven't got to it yet, so I don't know the specifics. But it seems like it was a kind of diplomatic marriage, where it's like Tony Stark of humanity and Emma Frost of mutant kind, like joining in and joining together, and we'll now have better relations with Krakoa and all that. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But it's written like good enough. Like it's not blowing me away, but I haven't read much Iron Man, so I'm
Is it the era of Iron Man where they draw him as Robert Downey Jr.? Or is
was for sure. I think it's gone back now. I think he's got like Iron Man had Robert Downey Jr. had like the round goatee.
Yeah.
Whereas in the comics, I think he's more had like the mustache and soul patch kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Not always like connected as
the
much.
90s cool guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. We'll see how it goes. If it turns out great, maybe we'll do it on the podcast. But yeah, the bad guy action figures. As I saw that, I was like, Santa is like insanely powerful mutant. Like, just
totally.
breaking up fights no matter what. I love the old. And now you X-Men will forget this ever happened and go about your stuff. And it's like maybe that's why he's not been in it as much afterwards, because no one remembers him.
Well, I mean, this is a tactic my DM used when he ran a Christmas session that had Santa in it, which is that it has to not be canon, right? Because you have this wider story that you're also dealing with. And at this point in the 90s, the people writing this shit knew that the people reading it loved to bicker about it. And so that's just such a convenient way of going, by the way, this isn't canon.
This is why they've not mentioned it again.
This is a fun thing that we made for you. Just enjoy it, please.
But here comes the possible plot hole. What happened to the Brotherhood of Mutants? Because
I suppose what did happen to them?
I think a bit of headcanon, which you can allow, is Santa revived them because he's nice at the end of the day and also wiped their memories.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
He's displayed that power. We can assume that's probably what happened. So, yeah, overall, it was a fun story. Like, it was a bit of a laugh. I liked a bit of a fight in the mall and all that.
So, just talking about the stuff that I harp on about, I found it all a bit busy.
There was a lot of, like, bystanders and stuff like that.
Like, I'm showing Ryan a couple panels now, which have a lot going on visually and a lot of dialogue. And there's panels, there's smaller illustrations inset in main panels that are like the bottom half of a page. It's busy. It's very busy.
It was the style at the time, you see.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think based on some of the older stuff we've been reading, I feel like that is absolutely the case. However, that was less the case in some of the other ones.
Yeah, and I think with this period of time, they were still kind of dealing with the fact that the X-Men... So X-Men was like mainly a 5-person team, as I said, starting off with. I think some artists kind of struggled with putting so many characters in single panels.
Yeah.
And so the X-Men was like one of the largest teams, like by this point. Because the teams around this time, like Fantastic Four was literally only 4 people. Yeah. The X-Men was then 5.
So this next one, A Christmas Coda.
Yep.
I'm showing my not comic book nerd status here. It has the Thing in it.
Yep.
And a bloke who I assume is the Silver Surfer.
No Silver Surfer in this one.
So, who is this? The Fantastic Four?
This is a Fantastic Four story. The main character of the story is Franklin Richards, who is the son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman.
Well, this is why I didn't have a scoop what was going on, because it was a very normal, grounded story about a ghost, and then all of a sudden this kid's mum is flying, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. So, in that part, that was an interesting way how they depicted it. That was her kind of making an invisible... So she makes invisible, like, force fields and stuff. So she's made one that she's kind of traveled along.
Dude, it was baffling.
But, like, it didn't draw that much from the actual story, did it? I assume.
No, but obviously I couldn't work out why this little boy's story was important. It wasn't... Because you don't see the Thing until the last panel. And then when I saw the Thing, I was like, right, I think this is Fantastic Four.
I do notice that the boy does have a 4 on his cap. I don't know if that was meant to be a giveaway for people more in the know.
Yeah, there it is, right on his little beanie.
I did find this story. So the basic gist of the story for this is they're shopping for Christmas, and young Franklin Richards, he's like, oh, I want to get this, and I have to get a gift for my dad though. Like, oh, shall I use the money on myself or not? and then he finds this man who is basically, what's his name? Is it Marley from Christmas Carol?
Yeah.
He's basically like a Marley stand-in. Like he's in a alleyway outside, and I reread this today, trying to kind of get a grip on like what the story was, and I'm still not 100% sure. He's like a ghost who was mean in his life, and his punishment is he has to watch the greed of humanity forever. And he's held on by chains, which is why he's Marley. But the chains he put on him himself, but I think that was a metaphor for him being an asshole in his life. And now he needs someone else to give him the
repentance, like generosity.
Yeah, give him some generosity that he didn't give people. So he kind of relying on someone's generosity to free him from this torment.
And to the kids' credit, he spends his last 50p
and gives away his, and I made a note of this because I liked it, his ex-mutant killer crocodile spelled with a K, bauble.
So I assumed that was just a Marvel reference.
I think it literally was just like a one-off, like it wasn't even like a reference. I think it was literally just like a
what's going to happen at some point is Tom King's going to be looking for a project, and he's going to listen to the podcast and he's going to go, that bauble that Ryan Jamie talked about.
I think I'm going to do an ex-mutant killer crocodile run, and it's going to be like Eisner Award-winning, like, seminal tale.
It becomes the new cornerstone of the MCU. Like, it just blows up.
But The Rock gets cast as Killer Crocodile.
No, we've already cast The Rock in something on the podcast. We can't cast him twice.
Yeah, but this is a Marvel thing, so it's different.
Yeah, I suppose
the geologist in the end of the world thing it's not going to be a Marvel thing, is it?
Well, you never know.
No.
You've only got to throw Spider-Man at it.
Yeah. Spider-Man, hyphen.
Spider-Man.
No, come on, there's a hyphen. You got to follow your rules.
Oh, fuck's sake.
If you insist on this chicanery, then at least follow the rules.
Chicanery?
Chicanery. Great word.
No, it's such a fantastic word.
Whenever anyone's messing around, chicanery, like call it out.
Tomfoolery.
Tomfoolery is a great one as well. Shenanigans, obviously. So yeah, I wasn't as big a fan of this one because again, like as I was trying to describe it, I didn't really make sense of it. I got the gist. Like
I thought it was a nice, fun, grounded narrative.
A grounded story about a ghost in chains.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of like Christmas stories, like when I say grounded, I don't necessarily mean it was a particularly grounded narrative. I meant they did something fun with an ancillary character from a superhero franchise, but made it Christmassy.
Yeah, and that's pretty fair. Like that is the whole anthology.
And for a company who at the time subsisted surely on the desires of children to own their shit, their toys, their comic books.
Oh yeah.
Sending a message to children that you shouldn't be too super greedy at Christmas, I think is actually quite socially responsible of Marvel.
Yeah,
for the time, it was the 90s. You could still put toy adverts on fucking children's TV back then.
Surely you can now, can't you?
I don't watch a lot of kids' TV.
Oh, let's just assume they do.
Well, no, I don't. I think back then you were allowed to show the toys doing things they couldn't actually do, weren't you?
Maybe.
Toy advertising in the 90s was wild.
Yeah, it was like crack of its day.
Yeah, totally.
But I think for me, this story, for me, it was a swing and a miss. Like, I see what they were trying to do. It just, the execution just didn't quite sit with me. Like, it all just felt a bit too shoehorned in. And ultimately, all these stories are superhero stories with Christmas stuff shoehorned in. Like, that's, I think it's fair enough to say that is all of them. But the execution, I think, was better on some and not as good on this one. Like, but I think it was good enough in the end. Interesting tidbit about the Fantastic Four. Ben Grimm, one of the few Jewish superheroes.
Yes.
To the point where I'm pretty sure I've seen him in like a proper rabbi get up, because I think he like officiated a Jewish wedding at some point in the Marvel comics.
Yeah.
They're also weird, I'm looking at the comic now, weird woman with a key who's just like, you know that guy who's being tortured? I've got the key, and you need to give me something you value for it.
Well, it was, you need to give me everything you have.
Yeah.
And he gave her the 50 cents, and she's like, no, you still have something that you value.
She's like, not my ex-mutant killer crocodile bauble.
I'm going to be honest with you, that bauble's rad.
It's pretty cool. I'd buy that. If I saw that, I'd be like, I'd have that immediately.
Right.
Should we make it?
Merch.
Marvel, don't ask us where we got the idea. It's like, you literally put X and mutant in the name. It's like, don't ask us where we got the idea from. And they'd be like, you stole the X mutant, like, that's copyright law. It's like, aha, we actually stole the whole thing. So,
yeah.
Joke's on you.
I wonder how long it would take Marvel to notice.
I think they've probably got like automatic searches for X and mutant.
And it's definitely based on the Turtles as well.
I think it was like a cross kind of thing.
I mean, look.
Yeah, it is. Yes, he's got the size. He's Raphael.
Yeah, he's got the size. He's got a red headband. He's definitely Raphael.
But then what's great about that is that's coming full circle. Because do you remember from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode we did?
I do.
Do you remember the origin? How that's related?
Yeah.
It's Daredevil. For anyone who hasn't heard that, the Daredevil origin, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles writers basically took that origin and said also the Turtles were there, and that's why they became mutants. So, yeah, fun little tidbit. Also, interestingly, Franklin Richards becomes one of the most powerful characters in Marvel because so it's revealed that he's a mutant. So he has the mutant gene, which they suspect might have been developed because of his parents' cosmic radiation that gave them powers. And his powers are basically reality manipulation. Like, he can, like, create entire universes.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Yeah.
I think the mutants thing really complicates the Marvel universe in terms of how people get their powers. There's too many different, like in DC, people just have powers.
So in DC, they kind of co-opted a similar thing, not as much, but they started using the term metahuman.
Yeah,
so there wasn't like a blanket explanation. It wasn't like we've got a metahuman problem. Although later things did co-opt that to a degree, not to the level of the mutants in X-Men in Marvel. But so there's like metahuman is just anyone who develops a power, but people just develop powers out of nothing. People literally just born and they're like, oh yeah, they got fire powers. So it's never, I think Marvel actually do better by having this tool to be like, how does this person have powers? Mutant.
But not everyone who has powers is a mutant.
No. But
that's what makes it baffling.
But everyone else has their own explanation.
Thor just got a magic hammer. He's not even the real Thor.
So original Thor they retconned it, so he was original Thor, but he was cast out of Asgard and they wiped his memories. That's when they made them Donald Blake.
Right.
Now, then that got retconned again, so now he was always Thor, grew up in Asgard.
Yeah.
But I like the Marvel thing where it's like, we need to give someone powers, they're mutants. Whereas DC is like, oh, they're a metahuman. It's like, what does that mean? Don't worry about it.
They're a metahuman. Yeah.
Whereas at least in Marvel, if you're not a mutant, there's some other specific explanation and origin.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
It's personal preference. Like
and I suppose because the X-Men aren't in the MCU, they play a much smaller role in Marvel's stuff at the moment anyway.
I mean, right now, yeah, they should be becoming a big part like soon because they've recently got the rights to them. And there's been some cameos of characters in the MCU.
I think Colossus would be a really great place to start because we've had so much Logan and we've seen a bit of Colossus in the MCU.
I think they're going to start with like original lineup X-Men, I reckon, and that's based on a spoiler from a recently released film. So, and this kind of gives it away, but if you don't want to hear spoilers, a post-credit scene from the Marvels, skip ahead 2 minutes just in case. Post-credit scene in the Marvels, one character ends up in another parallel universe or something.
Yeah. And
they wake up to Beast from the X-Men.
Right, okay.
So they are already stating that the X-Men are a separate universe and they're probably going to collide and merge or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. End of spoilers, in case someone skipped ahead and come back. The next story, was probably my personal favourite.
I'm going to be honest with you. I skimmed this one a bit when I read it. I can't remember a thing that happened. It's Punisher, though, isn't it?
It's the Punisher one,
yeah.
And to be fair, the story is pretty bare bones anyway. The reason my personal favourite is I really like the Punisher character.
Yeah.
Now, the thing you've always got to clarify with that is, I find, like, I've seen other Punisher fans, I do not endorse the Punisher and his means and motives and whatever. I find the character fascinating because I find him like, he's like a character embodying a philosophical debate on, like, justice and punishment and all those kind of things. So I really like the character. I when he's written the best is when he is challenging the norms of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
When he's not written well is when he's just violent for the sake of violence. And that can cross over into ways. Like Garth Ennis most famously wrote him, and he was very much I'm just going to have the Punisher be really violent.
You like Garth Ennis, though, don't you?
I like Garth Ennis. And I like his Garth Ennis run on Punisher. It's called Punisher Max.
Did we read something by Garth Ennis recently?
We did The Boys.
Of course. Of course, sorry.
So we know what he's like. But,
a little bit dark.
Yeah, but I find the Punisher's so good when he's like interacting with other superheroes because all other superheroes fucking hate him, like for good reason.
Yeah, and he is enhanced, isn't he? He is super.
No.
He's just a badass.
He's just a badass. He is the only closest thing is he's known to have an almost superhuman level of pain resistance.
Right.
To the point where I think at one point he was like operated on without anesthesia. And the thing is, it's not that he doesn't feel pain, it's that he just doesn't give a shit. But I like the Punisher again because he's just interesting in the wider context. I think it was an interesting choice to have for a Christmas-themed story.
As a side note, by the way, if you did just skip ahead by the precise 2 minutes that Ryan told you, what you've missed is 2 minutes of Ryan talking about how he loves the Punisher and endorses everything that he does.
Yeah, 100%.
Continue.
I have the tattoo. I put them on my guns and all that.
I literally put a timer on my phone for 2 minutes just for that bit.
That's good. Very, very professional.
I thought it was.
What's great about the Punisher as well is, again, his logo appears on a lot of like soldiers and cops stuff in America, which is bad.
Really?
Yeah, which is bad because they are completely misconstruing the message of the Punisher. But what's good is in a more recent comic, they actually did it where the Punisher runs into some police. And normally the police are meant to be like arresting the Punisher for obvious reasons. He's basically a superhero serial killer, essentially. Yeah. But the police are like, nah, we support you. And they show him like having his symbols on their guns and stuff. And the Punisher's like, you fucking idiots. Like, you're meant to be police. Like, you're meant to hold the law and like enforce it. Like, I'm a criminal. Like, I'm like, the Punisher, what's so good about him, he's very self-aware. He's like, I'm fucked up. Like, I'm doing this because I feel I need to. No one else should be doing it. Or he obviously has that argument with superheroes. He says other superheroes should be doing what he's doing, but basically he has to go with the police for doing it. And that was a very well-intentioned, like, writing against people who in real life value the Punisher and like, follow his values. Punisher being like, you're fucking idiots, so don't do that.
I didn't realize that he kind of had that status.
Well, it's that whole thing of like, you know, like shoot first, ask questions later, like that mentality. Yeah,
Jesus Christ. I mean, we can't get into that today.
No.
This is a Christmas episode. Yeah.
Well,
this is a joyous time. I'm full of Yuletide spirit.
This is why it's so weird that we've got a Christmas-themed Punisher
yeah, and
story.
Did you say he was famously Jewish?
No, that's the Thing. That's
right,
Grimm,
okay,
Ben Grimm the Thing.
Sorry. Ben Grimm the Thing.
Yeah.
Sounds like a hip-hop name.
There's a great panel from the original Fantastic Four, and I saw this on like Reddit. It's basically like Reed Richards not being able to read the room because when they're talking about having powers and becoming superheroes, the Human Torch is like, well, I'm basically like a Human Torch, so I'm going to call myself that. And so he's like, well, I'm going to call myself the Invisible Woman. And then the Thing is like, I'm a monster. Like, who would ever love me? Like, I'm just a thing, and that's what I'm going to call myself. And then Reed Richards goes, and I'm going to be Mr. Fantastic. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Your mate's like in a really bad place right now.
Have some humility.
He's like, I'm going to be Mr. Fantastic. Like, I'm awesome.
Brilliant.
Great panel. Like, look up if you can find it. So, do you want me to say the story of this Punisher?
Yeah, because I haven't got a scoop. What's going on?
So, basically what happens is we're at like a kind of underpass in America where, unfortunately, a lot of homeless people are having to huddle around a fire, and it's nearly Christmas, so they're, you know, additionally sad for that. And some gang members and drug dealers are doing a deal of some kind, and there's a bit of dialogue there, like what the situation is with them, and it's not all peaches. And then it turns out the Punisher is hiding amongst the homeless people, rips off his like disguise. It's basically like, I'm going to shoot these gangsters. And what I like as well is the gangsters go off and like they split up. So like the of the sides of the meeting, one goes one way, one goes the other.
Yeah.
And Punisher does make a note of being like, I don't know who these other guys are, and I don't know them. I don't know if they've been violent. I know these ones who I'm after have killed people. So that's who I'm going after. And then he's chasing after him. I think that again, like he's chasing. They're like trying to get away on the bridge, and he like cuts them off. And then it turns out the deal they made, they were being double crossed because the other guys put a bomb in the money they were giving them.
Right.
So Punisher's literally like, bollocks, they're getting away. And then their car explodes. He's like, oh, that works out well. And that feels like a Deus Ex Machina, but normally Punisher almost has like a 99% hit rate of like getting his target. Yeah. So I'm fine with them doing it like this. And then the money explodes and it kind of rains down over the homeless people, and it's a bit of like hey, these people have got something. And Punisher's like, I'll let them have the money, whatever. Because I think it's context with this that the Punisher basically uses the funds, like he funds himself with the money from these to continue his one-man, you know, tirade against criminals.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'll let these people have the money. Like, it's literally raining from the sky. I'm not going to run around trying to catch it or whatever. So
I'll just let them eat cake.
Yeah. So again, it was my personal favorite. I don't think it was that great a Christmas story. I think they just kind of wanted to get the Punisher in there just to have him like on the front cover.
Was he super popular at the time?
I think he's always been quite popular because, again, he's that level of like, for the people who are like, why do the bad guys keep like going to prison and escaping again and out again? Like, if you're one of those, then you have the Punisher who's like, no one's bloody getting away from him. Like,
yeah,
the few recurring villains he has have died several times anyway. So I think he was somewhat, especially like this point leading up to the 90s, where it got much grittier. Like, Punisher was like prime fodder for like carrying that torch of like grittier superheroes who bit more morally ambiguous. Like, he was already there. So I think he got much more popular in the 90s.
Makes sense.
Any thoughts on it at all?
Well, I mean, beyond what you've said, because I'll be honest with you, I glossed past this one because it was so short. So I'm looking back on it now. Don't like the artwork.
Yeah, I see that.
It's all very blue, is my issue with it. And, like, I don't really think they nailed the snow. Like, the snow is just kind of falling in front of whatever's happening, but there's no actual snowfall anywhere.
There's a little bit, but I know exactly what you mean.
What I do love, though, however, and I think this would make a fantastic poster, is the very final panel of him stood on the roof with a chimney full of toys and a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
With a yellow moon in the background and smoke coming off a factory. I just think that's wonderful imagery.
I think the reason why there's not much snow in this properly is because I think like the more white in the panels, I think would be confusing for like the white background of panels. So I think it was like a bit of a cut around here. I like that at this point in time when they were coming off the more conservative like 80s of comics, a character like the Punisher, he had to like shoot guns and kill people, but there was like never any blood. You never saw anyone actually get hit. It was just contextually like Punisher shot him and he died. Like, that's what you need to kind of get across. But yeah, it was a nice like splash panel at the end kind of thing. Not the best Punisher story, but
you're not expecting the best Punisher story, are you?
Not in a Christmas holiday special. Probably not. So the next story, I think we're actually going to be a bit at odds with over. I was not a fan of this next one.
This was my favorite.
Do you want to talk us through a bit first then?
So Thor is on his way home for the Midwinter Festival and shit kicks off and he has to fight a goblin.
So that in itself, yeah.
Great.
It's not the main part of the story though, is it? Well, or it's not the vehicle for the story, is it?
Right, but that's the bit I want to talk about.
Yeah. I found the reason I wasn't that hot on this one is because it felt like the actual Christmas part of it was like almost separate from the Thor stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel connected at all. And the one part that does connect it, but there's one part that connects it which I was all right with. Another part that connects it, I'm like, what happened? Why? I don't understand.
So it sounds like you should probably lead the charge with this one.
So basically the story is that there's a Viking, like an actual Viking on Earth, trying to, on a ship, whatever the Viking ship is called, man of war. Sure. One of those, trying to get back home to his darling something wife, a woman, and she's like standing at this storm, like, I hope this guy gets back. My Sigurd, I think is his name. And she's hoping that the storm will, like allow him to get back and everything. And then through all this, it's like, and anyway, Thor and Odin are in Asgard, and there's a bloody wizard who's launched an asteroid at Asgard. And Odin's like, hang on, don't do anything about this yet.
No, you're right. It is a hot mess, isn't it?
and then he's like, all right, now just destroy it with your hammer. And Thor's like, all right, here we go. And then the destruction of the asteroid becomes a beacon for Sigurd and his ship to sail towards.
Yeah.
So that part, I'm like, okay, that's, a bit of a link and I'm fine. Like, that's like a god's guiding the way for humans. I wasn't as hot on it being just like an accident. Yeah. Like, they don't know why. Like, Thor has no idea about these people. And then Odin, before Thor destroys the asteroid, he's like, oh yeah, get a bunch of great food and stuff. And Thor's like, why? And he's like, there's no time. Like, I'll tell you later. And then that food just appears with the woman who's waiting for Sigurd. And then Sigurd gets there and he's like, hey, we made it because we saw a light. And she's like, some mysterious figure dropped off all this food. And I'm like, why did Odin do that? Why did he? And then it turns out it wasn't Odin, it was Santa.
Yeah.
Or it was Odin. It looks similar to Odin.
It's Santa.
But it's different, isn't it?
So the original German version of Santa would often be portrayed as skinny, the white beard, and he would often either have green, yellow, or blue or purple robes. There wasn't a whole lot of consistency, as you'd imagine.
And that is the one we're looking at here at the end.
Yeah, totally. And I think that is like a Kris Kringle or a Sinterklaas kind of figure. So it's an earlier European, version of the modern Father Christmas that we have now.
And he's got 2 goats instead of the reindeer.
Yeah, again, that's not common.
That was the writer just like, this kind of fits.
Well, because of Thor's.
Yes.
So I think the implication is that he's maybe even using Thor's chariot. But again, Thor's chariot, not super known for the flying.
And again, the why is just the biggest thing with this one. I'm like, why is this Thor story so loosely connected to this kind of Christmassy story?
I think what this tickles for me, and this is probably just an area I should explore a bit more in comic books in general, is that I just quite like Thor.
I mean, I think you like that one in the same way I like the Punisher one.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great Christmas story, but it had our favorite characters. And so we were just like, yeah, cool, see them doing their stuff.
Bear in mind, I've never read a Thor. This is like the first time I've ever read a Thor comic.
You've read one Thor comic. It was the number 1 of Immortal Thor by Al Ewing.
Oh, I did, and that was really good.
Yes. We'll cover that properly later on,
totally.
Yeah.
So this was maybe like the second time I've actually read a Thor comic, and obviously we know how I feel about Thor. There's a whole episode on Jamie's love of the Norse mythology.
Yep.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a hot mess. The artwork is kind of middling.
Yeah.
It is very mid.
Very mid-guard. That's
Ding,
what
ding,
you
ding,
that's
ding.
what you come here for. Should I put a ping counter, a pun
Absolutely.
counter on that one? Sure, yeah.
It's worthy. That was a fantastic pun.
If he who's worthy of a pun shall get the pun ding sound. It's written on the hammer.
Written on Mjolnir.
So yeah, the 2 stories that just kind of had Christmas shoehorned into them. The next one, I really like this next one, is the Captain America one. I should go back.
It also has the thing in it, right?
No, the thing was in 1 at the beginning, like near the beginning. That's it.
Don't lie to me.
So
You're
just
telling disgusting, filthy lies, Ryan.
Just to mention as well, so Christmas Code was the Fantastic Four one, Midnight Drear was the Punisher one, 'Twas a Midwinter's Night was the Thor one,
Yeah.
and now this one is Precious Gifts with the Captain America one.
So again, I've never read a Captain America comic. I didn't realise how fucking blonde he was.
He's the all-American boy.
Yeah, I suppose he's the all-American hero, isn't he?
He's the blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy who fought against the Nazis. Very important distinction. But yeah, I really like this one. Do you want to try and give the story on this one?
No. I
Okay.
think you liked this one. So
I really like this one. So basically, Captain America, true Captain America fashion, he's spending Christmas basically helping out at a, like a food kitchen?
like
soup
a
kitchen.
soup kitchen.
Yeah. For homeless veterans, or not even homeless, just veterans in general, giving them Christmas dinner. And it turns out the woman he's working with there, he realizes by pure chance, because it's Christmas, she is the kind of long-lost sister of Bucky Barnes.
Yeah.
So at this stage of Marvel Comics, Bucky Barnes was only the kid sidekick of Captain America who died in the war.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is, at this point, Bucky Barnes was considered a kind of alongside like Ben Parker, Uncle Ben, of characters who were dead and stayed dead.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't be till years later, like I think in the noughties, when I think writer Ed Brubaker, who great writer, we're definitely going to cover stuff by him later on, he brought the character back as the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And it was actually like a really interesting, at the time, it was a really interesting like reveal of like, who is this mysterious new character? Oh my God, it's that character who died like decades ago, like in real time, and has never come back since. So at this point, we're dealing with a proper dead character. And the nice story is Captain America realizes that this woman doesn't know what happened to Bucky. And basically, he's at the soup kitchen just as Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
He then dons the Captain America costume, goes to a house, Ed like literally reveals like, hey, he doesn't even reveal who he is, but he's like, I'm Captain America, as you know. I'm here to tell you that the kid who you've seen in like World War II footage was your brother.
Because I'll be honest with you, until I realised what the story was about, it had this intro that was really confusing to me. So it has the yellow box, the like not dialogue box that Marvel love.
The like narration.
Yeah. And it said, many years ago, there was a terrible war in which brave men fought, and sometimes died, to defend the world from the madmen called Nazis. Two of the bravest of those soldiers were Captain America and his youthful partner, Bucky. And I'm like, why is it? Like, obviously, I read the opening panel and I was like, did people not know who Captain America was in the early 90s? Like, did we need that recap? And then obviously as you go through the story, it makes sense all of a sudden.
I mean, to be fair as well, Captain America was not a popular character at this point.
No, because the Avengers weren't super popular at this point, were they?
The reason the Avengers existed at all was because they took a bunch of characters who weren't selling as well by themselves. They were like, let's throw them together in a group and try this.
Which is why there's less synergy between the powers on the Avengers and the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Because the Fantastic Four were built from the ground up as an ensemble, weren't they?
Yes.
Whereas the Avengers is like a rough ensemble of characters that weren't very popular.
Yeah. And Captain America wasn't even in the original Avengers lineup. He actually came in like maybe just a couple of issues later. But like...
So was it originally Iron Man, Thor...
Ant-Man, Wasp, and Hulk, who was kind of the first villain, but really it was Loki controlling the Hulk. So Hulk kind of joined later.
And this is the thing, when you bring Thor into any
Scarlet
story.
Widow and Hawkeye were gone.
Oh, so they were OG.
I think maybe not issue 1. I think they might have come in a bit like around Captain America time.
Relatively early.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, this wasn't a bad Captain America story. It was a great representation of him.
If anything, I appreciated that this was a story where they didn't feel the need to shoehorn in some superhero fighting.
Yeah.
Which is less so in this, but comics generally, like you read one issue of a character and it's like, we have to get in a fight somewhere. It's like, it doesn't make you like this is a building blocks issue.
Yeah.
Because they need to sell every issue each month or each fortnightly or whatever. They have to put in a fight every time. So I appreciate this didn't have a fight in. Like, this was just a character story about what makes the character so interesting. He's so selfless. Like, he's on Christmas Day, like he says, like, I ain't got no family and I don't want to bother my co-workers and friends to like jump in on theirs, so I'm just going to help people. And then when he realizes what happened, he could have then and there be like, hey, I think your brother was Bucky Barnes. I think he was the guy in the sidekick to Captain America. Yeah, he went home, he put the costume on, got the shield, went around the house and did the proper like army, like, I'm here to inform you that your loved one has not made it.
This is something that kind of is interesting about Cap, because he is super, he is enhanced, isn't he?
So again, this is a strange answer. At this point, he was enhanced in a way, but the point and the result of the enhancement was he was the peak human physical condition. So he's not super, but he was artificially enhanced to become like the strongest, fastest, most endurable a human could possibly be.
Right, okay.
And then he's now strong. He's now superhuman, strong and fast and everything.
Because like Thor just always has Mjolnir with him, and obviously the Hulk can just Hulk out. And Iron Man, you know, later iterations, the suit kind of finds him or whatever. Steve Rogers has to run home and get the shield. Like, his whole thing is that he has a shield, and you can't just walk about as Steve Rogers with a fucking great shield, can you?
And I think that makes him kind of more interesting as a character, because he's not a superhero who's like, I mean, they've almost certainly done this, but he's not the superhero who's like, oh, I'm going to go into an alley and change and interrupt this bank robbery. He's always been a guy who's like, he is, his job essentially is to go to places that need him and be Captain America.
And I suppose it makes sense because he is a soldier. The rest of them are just civvies, whereas it's like, no, he is a highly trained soldier from World War II. That's his whole thing. Yeah. I love that in the MCU they didn't retcon his backstory to make him an Afghan vet.
Well, the whole point in the Avengers was he was unfrozen from World War then.
Yeah.
So when they're frozen, it can always be World War II.
But the war that Iron Man like built the first suit in changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that obviously had to change for those characters. Same with the Punisher as well, is because they obviously have not been frozen; they just exist. So it's like, well, if he's normal age, like adult age now, it can't be the Vietnam War because he'll be like 60 or 70 by now.
But I like that they didn't abstract him from his roots, because I'll be honest with you, I think it would hit different if you had an all-American hero who was enhanced for the Vietnam War. Well, let's be frank here, the Americans were kind of the aggressors. And so, like, it only makes sense for Steve Rogers to be a World War II vet, because it's the last noble war the Americans fought.
It's the patriotism that embodies the character.
Literally Captain America.
Yes.
You can't get past that, can you?
And the fact that, like, famously, the character had a front cover of him punching Hitler. Like that.
Really?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Superman had one as well. Like, that's like even weirder.
So were they still making this shit during the war then?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, it was part of like... It was
bunch of draft dodges.
Yeah. I don't know if the Captain America one happened during the war or not. I know bloody Superman and Batman was happening during the war, obviously. So Captain America, I think, actually started outside of Marvel. So we've touched on that before.
It's just a straight up illustration of a weird looking shield, man. Yeah, no, that is a Captain America cover, and he is punching somebody who's very obviously Adolf Hitler in the face.
And what's interesting again is Captain America's not originally Marvel, so he existed pre-Marvel.
Oh.
And the reason we know that is because of the anecdote from one favorite of the podcast,
Alan Moore. It's the Alan Moore moment.
And he's talking about Stan Lee, where Stan Lee was like, "Oh yeah, when I created Captain America," and I was like, that's funny, because he's like, I think at least Stan Lee was like, "Oh yeah, when me and Jack Kirby created Captain America," and I was like, "That's interesting," because I believe Jack Kirby created him before he joined Marvel. So not sure how you got that mixed up.
So is he a character that he just brought into the Marvel fold?
I think Jack Kirby brought him with him, I think, yeah. Because he was part of like a very independent, small, like, publisher.
So he still had the rights, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know specifically the rights. I just know Jack Kirby started him, created him somewhere else, and somehow managed to bring him to Marvel. Maybe, potentially, Marvel might have bought the company that Jack worked for originally. We'd have to do more research to get into it. But yeah, it's interesting, again, that he's that old a character, like predates Marvel, essentially.
Yeah.
So the basic story, as I said, he kind of delivers the news to this woman, like this elderly woman. It's like, your brother died in the war.
Yeah.
I wonder if they maybe touched on this later, or if they just completely forgot about this. Like, did Bucky Barnes later as Winter Soldier, did he revisit his sister or something? But what I loved, a little moment is Captain America's like, all right, I've given you the news, and I should be on my way. She's like, no, you stay and have Christmas with us. And you're like, there's the Christmas message, and that's all nice, everything. And classic Captain America is like, oh no, I wouldn't want to pose at all. And the woman's like, right, get washed up and get at the dinner table right now. And he's like, yes, ma'am. So that was fun. And I think that was kind of why it was my favorite.
Was that one your favorite?
Yeah, I'm going to say that one's my favorite. I think that was like the purest Christmas message kind of thing, wasn't it? Like having someone on the day. It wasn't about like, it wasn't like bigger, grander, like someone's being punished in the afterlife bollocks, or this one, or Captain America, or the Spider-Man one. Those two are probably my favorite.
Yes, the Spider-Man one, which we're coming up to soon.
Very soon.
We've got one more left.
The next one is I thought was very interesting, called Ghost of Christmas Present.
Yeah, so I don't even know who these characters are, mate.
So this one main character is Ghost Rider. So this one I thought was very interesting because I didn't know who it was going to be in the opening part. So this story starts off with a kid running away in the snow. Turns out he was like kidnapped from his home, and it's never really explained why. But that Ghost Rider is a very dark character as well. He's Punisher adjacent, but more like mystical. But then the reveal, like there's an early reveal that the kid who's running away in the dark, in the cold, in the snow, is also blind.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that is nightmare making. Yeah. That panel is So there's a panel where the kid is crawling through the snow. Again, white blobby snow, but at least there's some on the ground this time.
Again, different art. It's interesting that different artists were like able to do it.
But he's crawling through the snow in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer pajamas, and his eyes are just black. It's fucking galling.
They're white, or I'm looking at a panel where they're white. It's a bit further away, yeah. That is a galling panel, if that is. I'm looking at a close-up, and they've just whited the pupils.
Totally.
So I'm reading this part, and I'm going, have they put a blind kid in this to like garner even more sympathy or make it more harrowing. So I wasn't sure how I felt about that use of like someone's disability to be like raising the stakes and making it seem more dangerous. But the important caveat, when the reveal comes that it's the person who's saving him is Ghost Rider, I then was like, oh, I get now why.
It was a nice little choice, wasn't it?
So the reason that they've used a blind child for this part is because he can't see who's saving him. And Ghost Rider, as you see in the panel, just standing menacingly with the black eyes and the flaming head and everything. Everyone,
terrifying.
Yes. And I think the point is, what makes this story nice is everyone else who Ghost Rider saves, they're like, oh my god, it's a demon and they're going to get me as well. Like, that is what any reasonable person would think, and I think is a running theme in Ghost Rider stories.
And I loved that panel. That panel is badass. So it's Ghost Rider stood looking menacingly down at this kid who says, Santa, I'm cold. And he's clinging to Ghost Rider's legs, and you are like, this is horror making. Yeah. This is terrifying.
But then what makes it nice is because of this kid being blind, he can't see the horror that everyone else sees. So this is like one of the few moments that Ghost Rider can actually be just a pure hero without all the extra context.
So is he not always a hero?
So the thing with the Ghost Rider is, as I said, he's kind of a mystical version of the Punisher. So he is literally, he's possessed by the spirit of vengeance. And the point is that he is punishing those who do evil and inflicts pain on others.
Right.
He literally does a thing to the bad guys called the penance stare, which like it's his main thing. And the point of the penance stare is and anyone can have this happen. He will stare at someone with the stare and make them feel all the pain that they've inflicted to everyone else in their life. So that's the whole point of like punishing the evil, punishing the wicked. Yeah. And because the kid is innocent, he's like, yeah, I'll help you. Like I think you could almost argue that he was like only there to punish the evil. And then he's like, I might as well help this kid. Like, it's not on my job description, but I might as well get him home. Yeah. Ghost Rider, cool as fuck. Interesting little tidbits. I think he did the penance stare once to the Punisher. And normally the penance stare drives people crazy. Because like when they're actually confronted with the pain they've caused other people, it drives them mad and that kind of stuff.
But the Punisher has a superhuman ability to tolerate pain, right?
Well, that, and because this is more of a mystical thing rather than like physical pain. I think the Punisher was just like, yeah, all right then. Like, showed him pain. He was like, yeah, that was my point. Like, that's what I set out to do. Like,
it became a confirmation.
Yeah, and I think with Punisher, he was just like, yeah, that's what I was going for. So thanks for confirming.
Cheers for letting me know I'm doing a fantastic job of being the Punisher.
And then, interestingly, there's one comic of a Thanos in the future, and he has a Ghost Rider who actually turns out to be a Frank Castle from like another dimension. He becomes like a Ghost Rider who works for Thanos because he's gone insane. And what he does is he actually gets this Ghost Rider to give him the penance stare as a fun thing. He's like, I love experiencing all this pain that I've dished out to everyone else. He's like, it's like entertainment for him. It's like, well, in the future, there's no TV. He's like, give me a penance stare so I can like relive all this evil shit I've done. Yeah, and that builds up the Thanos character, like how evil he is. But yeah, nice story. I said Ghost Rider gets him home. There's like fun little bits where the blind kid is like, oh, this is like Santa's sleigh, and I can hear the reindeer. They're really, really aggressive, actually. And it's just like his motorbike, like, and he like rides across roofs and stuff. But yeah, that was a fun one. And I thought that was the juxtaposition of the Christmas message and the Ghost Rider. I thought the execution was so good here. It just felt like a more fun, like, this character in this scenario. Like, it felt like a fun thing.
So now that I have some more context and I know more about Ghost Rider, it's more interesting.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But again, the whole point is, how do these read for a non-superhero fan or a lesser experienced superhero
That one
fan?
made sense. That one made sense in a way that the Thor one didn't. And the Thor one was originally my favourite.
Yeah. This second to last one, oh boy. I did not even know of this character before.
So I'm going to be honest with you. This is one that I skim read because it was a hot mess.
Yeah, this one's called "It Came and Went on a Midnight Clear," and it stars Captain Ultra. And most people, I would hesitate to guess to say all people listening to this are going to be like me. Who the fuck is Captain Ultra?
So who the fuck is Captain Ultra?
I don't know. I've never heard.
I was hoping you would tell me.
I know, but that tells you something in itself. I have no idea. I've never seen this character before.
And so based on this, we have to find some Captain Ultra and see if it's any good.
Well, I Googled him and he's barely shown up since. I think.
Do you think he was made for this?
I don't think he was made for this. I think he was a pre-existing character. I think around this time they were trying to make him a character. Right. So it was like, we've got this new character. Let's put him in the big holiday special. Let's give him a story there. And then I think he just fizzled after that.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of looking almost like a time capsule of like, do you remember when they were trying to make Captain Ultra a thing? And he is the partner of someone who is in the Christmas photos and then gets broken up with soon after. They look at the photo like, who the fuck is this guy?
It's like, oh, it's that guy Kathy was dating, you know, the one who took his socks off.
Exactly. Does feature Thor. There's a brief cameo in.
Well, it would need to, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's like, please read this comic. Thor's in it for a second.
So was Thor super popular at this point? Because he's one of the Avengers. Was he like... So he was a later addition to the Avengers who was still popular at this
He was
point,
original
right?
Avengers.
Yeah.
Original recipe Avengers. And
recipe.
Yeah, I think the Avengers was like, again, Avengers, even as the team, they still weren't as popular as the X-Men or the Fantastic Four. Basically, the good rule of thumb with like knowing who was popular, who wasn't, was who had their rights sold by Marvel when they almost went bankrupt.
Yeah.
No one wanted the rights to the Avengers or any of the individual Avengers.
So Thor wasn't super popular at this point.
Not compared to Spider-Man or X-Men or Fantastic Four. Popular enough, again, that they put him in.
Well, I mean, apparently that wasn't a fucking benchmark, Ryan, because Captain Ultra made the cut.
Captain Ultra, who at one point is stuck in a garbage can and is waddling around like one of those hermit crabs.
Yeah, part of me did wonder when I was reading this if it was meant to be like a comedy piece and Captain Ultra is like a laughable figure.
I mean, maybe. He makes one joke that doesn't make any sense. Because turns out he's a stand-up comedian in his normal time.
Yeah.
The story is maybe somewhat attempt at funny, like maybe it's 90s humor, but one of the jokes he makes, he's talking about going to the Laugh Factory after this, and he's like, is that the other comics are going to be like, is that a banana peel on your head, or are you just excited to see me? And I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
No. Also, his costume.
It's horrific.
So I think one of the worst superhero costumes I've ever seen is Night Owl from
Watchmen. That's not too bad.
It's like a Poundland Batman costume. This is worse than that. He has like a little nose cover thing.
I think it's meant to be a U in his forehead or something.
It's all bad.
Yeah. And they
all bad.
They acknowledge that in the story, don't they?
Yeah. And
the story is, for anyone who gives a shit about this one, is he fights the character called Plant Man or Plantman. Plantman. No hyphen, so fair enough. And Plantman is resurrecting the Christmas trees.
Yeah.
People's Christmas trees are going missing. And Ultraman's like, I absolutely need to change into my costume and sort this out.
Yeah.
And then in a bit of a interesting twist, he actually reasons with Plant Man, and it's like, Plant Man's like, all these trees die, and there's a hole in the ozone layer, which turns out was a thing in the 90s. I had no idea. He's like, we need to keep these trees for the ozone, and Ultraman's like, you know what? You actually make a good point. Why don't we do a compromise? So Ultraman's like, let them cut down trees. I'll replant old trees from last year or somewhere else, and you use your powers to root them, so we keep the numbers of trees the same.
Yeah, which is I mean, as a superhero story, it's ridiculous. You can see they were driving at a moral here.
Yes, and environmentalism, apparently. And then Plant Man's like, hey, thanks, I've got you a gift. And the gift is a much cooler costume. Kind of a black costume ready for the 90s grittiness.
Yeah.
And Ultraman's like, well, what's wrong with my current costume? And Plant Man's like, look, take it from someone who wears salad leaves on his clothes.
It's just a hot mess, isn't it? The artwork's abysmal as well.
It's not surprising that Ultraman did not take off in his one of the worst superhero costumes I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And then we get to, again, one of probably my co-favorites, the Spider-Man one.
And the longest one.
Yes. And classically, they're going to end on their strongest note. You know, this is, so like a band like ending on their hit song, you know?
So the only Christmassy thing about this one really is that Peter Parker swings by his office Christmas party. This is a very just relatively solid early 90s Spider-Man story, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the point of it is, you know, thinking about kids who were in the hospital at the time and, you know, thinking about other people. It's J. Jonah Jameson, like, reconciling, like, all right, Spider-Man's not as bad as I think.
Yeah.
The whole relationship with JJ and Spider-Man is a great one, I think, like, when it's written well. When it's written well, JJ doesn't like Spider-Man because he doesn't like unregulated, uncontrolled, masked vigilantes. Like, it's the lack of, you know, was it not responsibility, but like accountability, exactly. So, but this one, I think it pushed it a little too far. When the kids are like, Spider-Man saved my life, and Jay's like, no, that ain't changing my mind. It's like, how many kids' lives saved is it going to take? And apparently the answer's 4. Like, 4 of them.
There is a finite number.
He's like, fine, I'll accept Spider-Man's good some of the time. But when it's written a bit better, I think it's more like, as I said, it calls to like, not anyone should just become a masked vigilante, but in this world, Peter Parker is such a pure soul.
Yeah.
That's why it works.
And the thing is, he doesn't, like, when it's written really well, he doesn't just out and out dislike Spider-Man. He just dislikes his existence, right?
Well, he's always kind of questioning, like, oh, and then he did this, and he's a menace. Because I think the thing with JJ is he thinks if Spider-Man didn't get involved, that he's kind of getting away with the police who would just go in and sort it out.
Yeah.
I think he's very much like what's that, like, conservative Republican kind of like, let the police sort it out. They do their job. Yeah, like they'll sort out kind of thing. And very obviously in the Marvel universe, it's like, bloody Doc Ock with his metal arms. Like, police ain't going to do shit.
The police have got a taser and a handgun.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think they're going to handle it. But I think that's the point of his character. And it makes, like, he represents, like, a real world type of person. So.
And I suppose also he's in the Fourth Estate, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in the newspapers.
Yeah, so he's in the Fourth Estate, and so to a certain degree, like, his livelihood is contingent on him making a lot of noise when Spider-Man does make a mistake. And so it kind of makes sense that would be that character, right?
Yeah. It also swings to and fro, pun not intended.
Ding, 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 ding.
I'll put the button anyway. But the Daily Bugle kind of swings from, like, legitimate newspaper to, like, tabloid.
Yeah.
So when it's a tabloid, it kind of makes more sense because they're just driving for, like, readers. So it's like, Spider-Man, you know that superhero? Well, he fucking destroyed a car or something. Like, and he, like, let people get away. So they're obviously going for that readership. But it does seem like JJ's, like, does believe it. Like, I respect at least that he believes the shit he's saying.
I suppose, he's actually pretty sincere.
Yeah, he's not just like, oh, this is popular, so I'll do this anyway.
So whereabouts are we in Spider-Man's main arc here? Like, is MJ still about? Like, because again, this feels like a pretty bread and butter Spider-Man story.
Yeah, I think at this point, like, because when we covered One More Day, the famously bad Spider-Man retconning story,
real bad.
When we did that, it did, in my research, it did appear that, like, they seemed to get married in the late 80s.
So they're married at this point, right?
I should think so, like, probably.
Because we don't really see much of her, do we?
No, and there's no reason we would in this one, really. But she's in the splash panel with him. Like, it's like Peter and MJ. So I think they are married, but I think they went through, like, ups and downs, you know, for interest and drama. It's like, so maybe they might have been, like, at worst separated for some, like, at this time, maybe, or maybe they're just happily married and she's at home. But yeah, it's...
Oh, I thought you said she's a hoe, but no, she's at home, right?
In this context, we only use hoe in the ho 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 context.
Ding 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 ding! You are full of them today.
That's not quite a pun, is that? That's more like...
It's close enough that you get a ding.
3 dings in one episode. That's crazy.
That is wild, isn't it?
Well, I think with this one, again, it was a nice enough story. Like, as you say, kind of bare bones enough. It did remind me of something.
Yeah, go for it.
Which I'm going to show you now. So I saw this. So this is a bit from the animated Spider-Man cartoon in the late 90s, early noughties.
Cool.
Probably late 90s, I would say. Seminal Spider-Man, like, made my generation or Spider-Man fans. Like if you weren't reading comics, you watched this and that probably got you into comics later. So there's a bit from that. And I remembered watching this at the time. And I'd never noticed this part. So this is from a short that was probably on TikTok or something. And basically, this is Spider-Man meeting with a child in the hospital who is a big fan. She's written letters and stuff. And he's like, I'm going to go visit this kid and like be Spider-Man for her and stuff. And he tells her like his origin and stuff. And then, well, I'll show you the video. So I'm going to show Jamie this video, then we're going to talk about it after. It's 16 seconds, so it's fine.
What the fuck?
So
what the actual fuck?
So the short has some added audio, but the visuals are all from the cartoon.
Can I explain what happens?
Sure.
Peter Parker meets a child. She asks who he is, and he says, "Sure, for you, I'll tell you who I am." He unmasks himself. Inexplicably, she knows who this random...
Because she's such a big fan, the way they cut out, she knows the photographer who's taking all the Spider-Man photos. So she's like cutting them out of newspapers. So this Peter Parker guy's taking all his photos. So she knows him that way.
So she recognizes him as Peter Parker.
Yeah.
She says, "It's okay, I'll keep your secret for the rest of my life." He jumps out of the window and the frame pans down to a sign that says it's the hospital for terminally ill children.
Yeah.
And that's dark, Ryan.
I saw this clip and I was like, did that actually happen? And I went back and checked. I was like, that actually happened. It completely went over my head watching it as a kid.
Do you think they knew what they were doing?
Absolutely. I think it was meant to... This short was cut in a way where it's very quick.
Yeah.
I think it was meant to be revealed in a way. I think it was meant to be revealed in a way it was like, oh, Spider-Man, the reason he visited this kid is because she's terminally ill. And I think it was meant to be like kind of explaining the episode of like, that's why he was there the whole time.
About the rest of her life.
They really put in I think they put in a joke a dark joke without realizing it was a dark joke.
That's so fucked up, man.
Because I think in the original one, I don't know if I'm at like, was the Mandela affecting this or not? I'm pretty sure that she goes like, I'll keep your secret for the rest of my life. And I could almost swear he goes, I think you might just be, I think you're right about that. Like,
no shit.
I think, yeah.
Oh my God. What, until 6 p.m? Like, what the fuck, man?
So, reading the story, I went, I remember this thing. And then managed to find, I was like, I can't wait for Jamie to see this.
So fucked up, Ryan.
So, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So, yeah, I think we've covered the Marvel 91 special, and we are in sufficient festive spirit.
How did you feel about the Marvel 91 special, Ryan?
Overall, I thought it was fun. Like,
do you know what? Like, because these kind of things are always just like a crude way of selling extra comic books to grandparents to give to their kids at Christmas, right?
Yeah.
And do you know what? On that level, it fully delivered. I think they should keep doing them. I think they should make more of them.
I liked the variation. Like how different all the stories were and stuff. I think even if they don't do this specific type of anthology, the comics like Marvel DC, they've always been doing Christmas specials. Like every year, if it's a chance to make an extra comic and sell an extra comic, they'll take any reason they can get. And obviously Christmas is one of the biggest ones that they could.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, there's a Christmas one right now, a DC one with Batman and Superman, which hopefully we'll do next year once all the issues were actually released. But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. It was
me too. It was
a bit of fun.
I had fun with it.
It was a lot. I think it added value by being also nostalgic in that early 90s era comics. So that was fun as well. Got introduced to Ultraman. Like,
I'm definitely going to seek out every Ultraman thing I can. We're going to do a full episode on Ultraman.
Yeah, the task would be, who the fuck is Ultraman?
Yeah, Ultraman, the superhero that wasn't.
Yeah, literally. So, yeah, I think that's it. One thing we were going to do at the top of the episode, but we didn't. We're not sure if we're going to have an episode next week or not. I think tentatively we should be having an episode next week. It really depends on schedules this time of year and all that kind of stuff. So, fingers crossed, hopefully we do have one next week.
If we do it, we might both just be drunk.
Yeah, that'd be a fun way to go. I think we can at least say what we're doing for it. We know what the next episode is going to be. It's going to be our cheers and jeers for the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to work out the Gen Z parlance for ranking things.
Yeah, because we're doing an S to F tier jobby.
Yeah, but the tiers are, top one is goated.
Yeah.
It's based is like, it's good, but it's like, it's decent.
Goated, based, mid.
Yeah. And something for bad.
Clutch.
Is clutch bad?
Yeah, clutch or cringe.
Cringe, I think, is cringe is more commonly used.
Cringe is its own category.
Yeah.
Like, oh, cringe, man. Yeah, no, so it's goated, based, mid.
Cringe?
No, we need so S tier is goated, A tier is...
Based.
based, which means B tier is mid.
Yeah.
C tier is like
I in my millennial parlance, I'd be like,
Meh.
But then that's kind of mid, isn't it? Like, so it needs to be a bit bad. Like,
yeah, so
worse
C
than mid.
tier is mid, and then F tier is cringe.
Yes.
And then that means that we need to find something for B tier, something between.
I feel like A, B, I think we can condense them a little bit. I think we can go just in order: goated, based, mid, and cringe.
Goated, based, mid, and cringe.
Because goated is like best of the best.
Yeah.
So like, what you're really aiming for is like you got your good, bad, and mid. So based, mid, cringe. But then if something exceeds based, then it's goated. Yes. So we're glad we've sorted that out.
So have a very merry fucking Christmas. From everyone here at the Comic Literate team.
All of us
have a wonderful... They don't know. They don't know.
And if you want to wish us a Merry Christmas, then
you
go on to
You can do so at comicliterate@gmail.com.
Or in the form of a 5-star review.
On wherever you get your podcasts from.
Exactly.
Please watch some TikToks. Merry Christmas. Bye. Sleigh bells. And you need to edit in sleigh bells right now.
I was going to give it, and to all a good night.
Oh, I missed it. Fuck. Sleigh bells. There needs to be sleigh bells.
Sleigh, girl. I'll put in an audio clip of what's his name?
Don't look at me.
RuPaul going sleigh. I'm putting that in, yeah. All right, bye.
Bye.